Hey guys, my name is Dan. I'm a veterinarian and welcome to the channel. Today I'm talking about heat stroke in dogs. Heat stroke or just exposure to heat that causes the dog's temperature to rise to an inappropriate level. Common. It's something that I see a few times this summer. I'm here in Omaha, Nebraska. It gets hot, it gets humid. And you know what dogs I see most commonly for this problem? Brachiocephalics. Brachiocephalics are those dogs that have pushed in noses, long soft palates, narrow tracheas. Those doggies like French bulldogs, Boston terriers, English bulldogs. I mean, there's a handful of them, guys, but all these doggies and any doggy can have heat stroke. And dogs, unfortunately, they don't have as many sweat glands as we do, and the best way they get the heat off their body is by panting. So they're gonna open their mouth, their tongue's gonna flap out, and the heat is gonna come off of them. They do release some heat through their paw pads too, but you know what, guys? If they're on a hot surface, those paw pads aren't doing much, and if it's really humid out, not doing much either. The scary thing about heat stroke with doggies is the temperature rises, and it can get so serious temperature wise. It can definitely affect their brain if it gets too hot. But also, guys, they can get a non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema where their lungs get really wet and they breathe harder and harder, and their trachea gets really wet and starts to swell, and then it's just incredibly hard for them to breathe. The most intense heat stroke case I ever saw, an English bulldog that came in, he could barely breathe. We actually ended up, sounds backwards, we gave him a little sedation because we had to just control the situation, and I put an endotracheal tube down his throat to hold his throat open, and then we cooled him off. We did IV fluids, we did medicines to reduce the swelling of his throat, and we got his fever down from about 106, 107, down to the normal, about 101. Dogs are amazing. He walked out that night, and he went home, and he's been doing great ever since. I was like, 5 years ago. Heat stroke is one of those things where it's super preventable. Number one, you should always be looking at how hot it's going to be outside. If it's going to be hot outside, your doggy should not be outside very long. Also, how humid is it going to be? Is it going to be really humid? Are they going to be able to get that heat off their bodies? So how hot and how humid are key. Also, do you have any cover? So do you have any place for the doggy to escape the heat? You need to have cover. If we have heat coming from above and around and below, my goodness, heat stroke is going to happen so much quicker. A doggy should always have access to get out of the heat, and bare minimum, that is some shade. What I encourage is you should look at your temperature for the day, and then doggies should go out and then come back in right away. If you have a brachiocephalic doggy, you should be going outside with them and then bringing them back inside. You should not let them just play for a little while, because if you're like me, you're going to forget about the time, and you look over and you're like, my goodness, they've been outside for way too long, and you go get them and things are serious. I would highly encourage you to go outside with your doggy, watch them play and hang out, and then bring them inside. Just don't even risk it. You should focus on times of the day, when the morning and the evening, when you are able to have the doggy go outside and they're not being stressed by the temperature. Of course, using the bathroom regularly is needed, so you're going to have a time of the day that you're going to have to go more often, like in the middle of the day. That's not going to be ideal, but of course, for those situations, make it a bit shorter. Now, some doggies, they are much better at regulating their heat. Either they are more fit or thin, they have better airways, and some of these dogs, or they have less fur, they're not huskies or anything, some of them are less likely to have complications. Any dog that goes outside should have access to cooling and escaping the heat, and in almost all cases, that should be getting back inside. You should really take them in. So yeah, you could definitely cool their feet off. You should put some alcohol, isopropyl alcohol in their feet. You should put some cool, not cold, some cool water on their feet. But the thing is, if your doggy is experiencing heat stroke, you should take them to the veterinarian ASAP. They need to get an IV in their arm. They need to get fluid therapy. They need to get a handful of different things. If your dog has a temperature of anything over 105, my goodness, that is really, really darn serious. And if it was one of us, we wouldn't be sitting at home saying, like, how can I cool this kid off? Like, how can I cool myself off? You'd be going to the hospital. So if your dog is experiencing heat stroke or breathing issues from the heat stroke, don't wait around. Call your vet, and literally, you should do this. Call them and say, I'm coming in because of this heat stroke thing. I'm driving over right now. If they say no, you should literally just change your direction and go to the emergency clinic. But if you're say coming in right now, most of them are going to say, sounds great, we'll be ready for you. Don't just walk in and be like, here's my bulldog, Fido, he's struggling. You should really call them, tell them you're coming, so they're ready for you. Because they're going to get everything set up for heat stroke, and they're going to make sure your doggy's better. All right, guys. What do you think? That wasn't too bad. So thanks for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If this content was helpful, please consider liking, subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. You guys take care. Thanks for watching. Bye.